This is Quality Over Quantity. I am host Samuel Monte Young-Bey, and on this episode, we're going to talk about sovereign citizenship. I pulled up this PDF. It's a quick guide to sovereign citizens. It was revised November of 2013 by UNC School of Government. UNC is University of North Carolina School of Government. So that's who revised this. And it says, note, much of the information for this paper was provided by detectives Rob Finch and Corey Flowers of the Greensboro, North Carolina Police Department, Amy Funderburk of the North Carolina Administrative Office of the Courts, David Adinolfi of the North Carolina Attorney General's Office. Now, there has been, I know for me, a lot of people have asked me about sovereign citizenship or sovereign citizenry and how one can be a sovereign citizen of the United States of America. And my answer is that is an oxymoron. It is impossible to be a sovereign citizen of a corporation. The United States of America is a corporation, and there is many documents that expose this information. But it's just crazy because everybody talks about they want to be a sovereign citizen. You can't be a sovereign and a citizen of a corporation. It's impossible. You can be a sovereign of a nation because you are indigenous. The originals, the first, you are the aboriginals, the aborigines, the indigenous, the native peoples of this land. You can be sovereign then and only then, but this document is going to be very informative. You feel me? We should know what's going on when there is deception for trickery. You feel me? When there is smoke and mirrors, you dig? We are being, for lack of better terms, hoodwinked, bamboozled, run amok, led astray, shanghaied, befuddled. You feel me? Duped, foiled. You feel me? And the above, etc., etc. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's bananas, real talk, because this whole basically is like it's trying to manipulate the truth in every one of these documents that I'm presenting. Even if it sounds like a cover-up, the truth is hidden in the cover-up. In every lie, there is an air of truth, and that's the only thing that makes that lie acceptable and believable. If somebody created a lie that was totally just far-fetched in every scope of the imagination, you would be like, nigga, please. like real talk. You would be like, alright, whatever, bro, I ain't trying to hear shit. So this is the dilemma that we face, because we are being treated as if we are that naive, that ignorant to be just deceived and manipulated. So sovereign citizenship, sovereign citizenry, what it is, what's popping. Let's get into it. A quick guide to sovereign citizens. UNC School of Government revised November 2013. Note, much of the information for this paper was provided by detectives Rob Finch and Corey Flowers of the Greensboro, North Carolina Police Department, Amy Funderburk of the North Carolina Administrative Office of the Courts, and David Adinolfi of the North Carolina Attorney General's office. What is a sovereign citizen? Sovereign citizen is a catch-all phrase referring to a variety of anti-government individuals and groups who share some common beliefs and behaviors. The organizations to which many sovereign citizens belong have a variety of names: Moorish Nation, the Aware Group, Washita Nation, the North Carolina American Republic, Republic of United States of America, etc. The same views may be embraced by free men on the land, Sons of Liberty, and Aryan Nation. Many sovereign citizens may not affiliate with any of these groups in one way or another, though all sovereign citizens, whether tied to an organization or not, adhere to a view that the existing American governmental structure, including the courts and law enforcement, is illegitimate, and that they, the sovereign citizens, retain an individual common law identity exempting them from the authority of those fraudulent government institutions. Let's pause there. Sovereign citizen is a catch-all phrase. It is catchy. It is, like a punchline. It's getting real trendy, but it's some bullshit. There is no such thing as a sovereign citizen. As I explained earlier, one cannot be a citizen of a corporation. And so, in fact, it's not sovereigns aren't anti-government. A sovereign established government, the laws. A sovereign citizen is one who is established and connected to and under the authority of the corporation, even if they want to try and act like they're not, because they are still alien, you feel me? Because they're trying to be a sovereign and a citizen. You can't be a citizen of something and be a sovereign of the land, you feel me? It's an oxymoron. And to name Moorish Nation in the grouping with these sovereign citizen groups is bogus, and it's actually slanderous, because a Moorish American is not a citizen of the United States. In fact, the Moorish American is a foreigner to the United States, because a Moorish American is the only American on the American soil, and that is North, South, and the adjoining island, Northwest Africa and or Northwest Amexem and or Al Morocco and or Amaru. It's the point is, it is slanderous to put Moorish Nation on this list with sovereign citizens. Moors are not sovereign citizens. They are just sovereigns to the land, period. They are the indigenous. But the Aboriginals, the first, Ab is Latin for first, or, like number one. You feel me? The Aboriginals, the first and or original individuals on the land. But then you have law enforcement and the courts are illegitimate. American governmental structure, including the courts and law enforcement, is illegitimate, and that is correct. I do have a document that I'm going to cover, speaking on the corporation or the corporate status that the United States did, the corporate standings, and the corporation has been dissolved already, and it has been called on to dissolve and disband, and for various participants in the fuckery to be you feel me, dealt with properly, judicially, fiduciarily, and then physically being removed. It's crazy, because it's just crazy, man. But yeah, other sovereign citizen groups are bogus. You know what I mean? It's bogus. So, the Washita Nation might be legit too, though. And just because it's a national thing, it's not. Nations are recognized, and sovereigns are sovereign to a nation. That's why they are recognized and acknowledged. So, citizens are. Think about the Romans. Citizens. They had citizens. Could anybody in the Roman times, like Paul in the Bible, Saul at first. Saul, his father bought their Roman citizenry. He purchased it through basically like indentured servitude, and that is how Saul, who was later given the name Paul, who later took the name Paul, he was born I believe he was born a citizen of Rome because his father purchased their citizenry. If that had not been established, then Paul would not have been a citizen of Rome. It's been a while since I've been in the theological studies, but another topic. I digress. Sovereign citizens may issue their own driver's licenses and vehicle tags, create and file their own liens against government officials who cross them, question judges about the validity of their oaths, change the applicability of traffic laws to them, and in extreme cases, resort to violence to protect their imagined rights. They speak an odd, quasi-legal language that by not capitalizing names and by writing in red and using certain catchphrases, they can avoid any liability in any judicial system. Let's pause right there. First off, sovereign citizens may issue their own driver's licenses and vehicle tags, create and file their own liens against government officials who cross them, question judges about the validity of their oaths, challenge the applicability of traffic laws to them, and in extreme cases resort to violence to protect their imagined rights. Let's pause there. All of that is not true for a sovereign citizen, but all of that is true for a sovereign. There is the United Nations, the UN's rights of the indigenous people.
My last night in Havana, better not miss the flight. Never wanna be stuck in some shit again like this, alright? And I don't even know how I got here, for real, it's fucked up. Woke up, slumping the chair and still trying to get my bearings about face. Standing in the corner of the space, was a nigga with no face.
Alright, the rights of indigenous people. It is a easily downloadable. I actually downloaded it and printed it out right on the top of the deck. There you go. United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. So, you feel me? This is definitely a must-have for all Moors. We should have this. We should be going through this, highlighting and looking up definitions and researching, because sovereigns have all of these: own driver's licenses and vehicle tags, create and file their own liens are lawsuits against government officials who cross them, question judges about the validity of their oaths, challenge the applicability of traffic laws to them, and in extreme cases resort to violence to protect their imagined rights. These rights are not imagined. I just showed you the Declaration on the Rights of the Indigenous Peoples. And this is by the UN, the United Nations, which means that it is applicable to all nations. You feel me? This is the United Nations. And the Americas is a nation having national people who are indigenous, aborigine, and they have descendants who have passed down the generations to the present. Then you have They speak an odd quasi-legal language and believe that by not capitalizing names and by writing in red and using certain catchphrases, they can believe any liability in our judicial system. They can avoid any liability in our judicial system. This is a fact. We've heard of diplomatic immunity. When a citizen of a foreign nation or a national, they don't even call them citizens, they call them nationals or dignitaries or whatever, from another nation, they have certain liberties that others don't have. You feel me? And this is not licensed to just, go out and do whatever you want to do, rape and pillage and whatever. You have to be self-governing. You feel me? We are self-governing entities. If you are not self-governing, then you might as well remain a citizen of the quasi-government that runs the show at present. Writing in red. Red represents blood. That is very accurate. Even your thumbprint in blood, in red, is your own personal seal. Reading the documents that in the treaties. When I went over the treaties, at the end of a lot of the treaties, you'll hear me say that said person with their own seal. They signed it and sealed it with their seal. So everybody has their own name and seal, or signature and seal. Most signatures in that time were written in cursive. If it was printed, it meant a copy. So to write it in cursive and to write it in red is like making a blood oath. It symbolizes that. But you can also write it in blue or sign it in blue, and that represents the original document instead of signing in black, because black represents a copy. Red also establishes an original document, but there will be documents established by you, whereas if you're signing a contract, you'd want to sign it in blue. And there's no need for catchphrases because in judicial systems, because all the judicial systems are corporations, and you don't. It's another document I'm gonna read, but you don't have to, as sovereign, not a sovereign citizen, but as a sovereign, you don't have to adhere to any corporation's so-called laws. Let's say you're in McDonald's, and McDonald's is like, you're gonna have to do X, Y, Z in order for you to, enjoy McDonald's. You can easily get up and go to another McDonald's and still get the same shit, less attitude. If McDonald's is what you want, you feel me? So it's crazy to believe that, but it's crazy to believe that a corporation with the influence of a McDonald's or a Wendy's, you feel me, a J.C. Penney's, Sears, they could tell you and lock you up for dumb shit. That ain't even lawful, but it's legal according to their statutes and codes. But let's continue. They even think they can lay claim to vast sums of money held by the United States Treasury based on the premise that the government has secretly pledged them as security for the country's debts, which is true. Based on these beliefs, and a twisted understanding of the Uniform Commercial Code, it's not twisted, they try various schemes that they think discharge them from responsibility for their debts. Sovereign citizens usually get, some of them get off for certain charges, and some of them get arrested. Get locked up. Moors, some of them get off and some of them get arrested. The more knowledge you know on these subjects, the less you will be victim to the practices. The Noble Drew Ali said, study, study, study. That's because it's necessary. Law, civic, definitely necessary. The plan is to rob you of your vast sums of money. Notice it says that based on the premise that the government has secretly pledged them as security for the country's debt. Don't you got a social security number? What they believe. Although the myriad sovereign citizen groups and individuals not tied to a particular group all have their own idiosyncrasies in their beliefs. They tend to share some common ideas. The first is that there are two classes of citizens within the United States. One class is sovereign or de jure citizens or original citizens of the states. The second class, first created by the 14th Amendment, is federal or U.S. citizens. Sovereign citizens enjoy all the rights of the Constitution, but federal citizens do not. Federal citizens, the sovereigns believe, have bargained away their freedoms by accepting benefits from the United States government, much of which sovereigns do is intended to rescind or denounce that federal citizenship and reclaim their common law sovereign citizen status with all its rights. That helps explain why they refuse to get driver's licenses and register vehicles, reject Social Security, avoid using zip codes, and may not pay taxes. May not pay taxes because those are all forms of contracting with the government and accepting the lesser class of federal citizenship. That is, it is accepting a lesser class of federal citizenship. It is accepting a corporate citizenship status. Reconstruction history is important to many sovereign citizens. They view this, that their view is that the government established in southern states after the Civil War were imposed against the will of and without the consent of the citizens and are not lawful. Those sovereigns distinguish between the original state of which they are citizens and the false and illegitimate state that occupies the same territory. And as already mentioned, they view the 14th Amendment as the source of the new separate class of federal citizenship. A second significant tenet for sovereign citizens, blending with the distinction between sovereign and federal citizens, is that when the federal government abandoned the gold standard in the 1930s, I have been saying this. I am a Philadelphia Eagles football fan. The story is long at this point, so I'll tell it later at another time. But they were the East Rutherford Yellow Jackets. They changed their name to the Philadelphia Eagles in 1933 after Roosevelt's New Deal. The emblem or the signet logo for the New Deal was an eagle. So that's why they chose the name the Philadelphia Eagles. The coach did. I believe his name was Lud Ray. But Roosevelt's New Deal was when the federal government abandoned the gold standard in the 1930s. It substituted its citizens as collateral for the country's debts by pledging each citizen's future earnings to foreign investors. As with all other aspects of sovereign ideology. Now that is true. It's GMEI utility.com or whatever, and put in your social security number with the dashes, hit the blue button, let that thing calculate, and then just look at the corporations, the companies, the businesses that are attached to your social security number on the world market. I'm just saying. Some of these places is gonna be like, you can be like New York, California, but Florida, shit might be right around the corner. I looked at mine, I seen something that was like a couple cities over. Shit crazy. Where are we? As with all other aspects of sovereign ideology, the details can vary considerably, but generally, the explanation for how this happens is that a secret United States Treasury account is set up for each citizen at birth. Some large sum of money placed in it or pledged to it, ranging from hundreds of thousands of dollars, 630,000 is a common number, to millions depending on which sovereign citizen group version you hear. As a consequence, they say two separate identities are created. The corporate shell account, the one pledged as security, is the straw man to which every sovereign citizen refer, and in their view is separate and distinct from their true flesh and blood identity. Now, it's $5. Amazon. Get your straw man, whatever you want to know. So this is the information for sovereign citizens, but it brings light to the truth of the matter. There is untold sums of money connected to you on the day you are born, and your signature is a footprint and the handprint, because at one point in time an X or your handprint or your, you know what I'm saying, was your signature if you didn't know how to read or write. It's the same thing. Parents don't know what they're doing. Parents do have no clue what they're doing. And this is how you become wards of the state. Actually, parents, if you haven't done it, go file for custody of your children, because you don't have custody of them. They're wards of the state. They're not even you don't have custody of them. The state has custody of your children. So go file for custody of your children. Or if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more like it, subscribe to my channel. Let me get a like down here so YouTube will know what's going on. And hit that notification bell also. And I mean, leave a comment too. Alright?
Life completely fucked. New York Stock Exchange, instantly your numbers drop. Souls that remain, depression is great. They go berserk, expecting it to stay the same, knowing that it'll never work. It's the battle of the gods when you in your world at odds.